In 1998, maalaala mo kaya aired an episode titled Kopita. At first glance, it was nothing unusual. A simple story, a priest was sent to a remote barrio, a familiar monster. And yet years later, Kopita became something else entirely. Not because it was the scariest episode MMK ever produced, not because it showed anything we hadn't seen before, but it slowly disappeared. No regular reruns, no official uploads, only fragments, retellings, and low quality recordings are circulating online, each one slightly different from the last. As the episode vanished, the fear grew. People didn't just talk about what happened in the story, they also discussed it. They talked about what happened to the story. Some claimed it was too disturbing to re-air. Others believed it captured something real, something it wasn't supposed to. But the truth is more unsettling than any rumor. Kopita isn't terrifying because of what it shows, it's terrifying because of what it leaves behind. A priest who keeps his faith even after becoming a monster, a family forced to witness what cannot be cured, and a story that refuses to stay archived. This isn't just an episode of Maalaala Mo Kaya, it's a piece of lost Filipino television. And like all lost things, it asks a simple question. What scares us more? The monster on screen, or the thought that it was never meant to be found again? At its core, Kopita tells a story we already know. A man enters an unfamiliar place. He believes he is there to help. Slowly, he realizes he is not among people like himself. Father Eduardo is sent to a remote barrio to serve as its parish priest. The community is quiet, isolated, and avoidant of religion. There are no immediate signs of danger, no warnings, no visible threat. This is where Kopita aligns itself with a familiar horror tradition. The danger does not announce itself, it waits until the protagonist is already embedded in the space. The episode eventually reveals that the people of the barrio are aswang, a type of vampire-like creature. Not outsiders pretending to be human, but a community built entirely around secrecy and survival. Father Eduardo is not attacked, he is absorbed. Once transformed, the horror shifts inward. The second half of the episode is no longer about discovery, but containment. Father Eduardo returns home, still clinging to his identity as a priest, still praying, still believing that discipline and faith might overcome what has happened to him. They do not. His cravings escalate, his body betrays him, and his family, especially his sister Dolores, is forced to an impossible position. The solution they choose is not violent, it is practical. They restrain him, they hide him, they try to manage the problem quietly. This is where Kopita becomes more unsettling than its premise suggests. The episode does not frame Father Eduardo as a monster, nor does it frame him as a victim in need of rescue. Instead, it presents transformation as irreversible. Once crossed, there is no return to who he was before. In the final moments, Father Eduardo escapes, but instead of running away from the horror, he returns to it. He returns to the barrio, back to the community that first transformed him. But even then, he refuses to do what they are doing with this. His body crumbles and weakens due to hunger. The episode ends without punishment, without resolution, without moral correction. Kopita does not ask whether the monster can be saved. It asks what happens when faith survives but the body does not. And then, it stops. What makes Kopita linger is not the aswang reveal, it's what happens after. Once Father Eduardo returns home, the story shifts from being about monsters in a distant place to something far more intimate. The horror moves into the family space, the dining table, the bedroom, the prayers whispered at night. This is where Kopita quietly aligns itself with a tradition seen in films like Yangao. In both stories, evil does not arrive as a sudden invasion. It comes through someone familiar, someone loved, someone you are obligated to protect. Father Eduardo's transformation does not isolate him from his family, it binds them to him. Dolores does not abandon her brother. She takes responsibility for him. She helps restrain him. She helps hide what he has become, and in doing so, she becomes part of the horror survival. This is a significant shift. Kopita suggests that monstrosity is not sustained solely by cruelty, but also by care, by loyalty, by love that refuses to let go, even when letting go might be the safer option. The episode never frames the family's action as wrong. There is no condemnation, no narrative punishment for choosing blood over morality. Instead, the horror quietly spreads through proximity. The more Father Eduardo stays, the more his condition becomes normalized. And crucially, the episode implies that this normalization continues beyond him. Charo Santos' closing narration reveals that Dolores' grandchild sent the letter recounting Father Eduardo's story, which means the story did not end with the priest's disappearance. It was remembered and passed down, preserved. This is where Kopita becomes unsettling on a generational level. The horror is not just that Father Eduardo became an aswang. The horror is that his story survived within the family. Like Yangao, Kopita treats evil as something inherited, not eradicated, something that adapts to domestic life, something that does not need sorcery forever, only silence. And in that silence, faith remains, prayer remains, routine remains, but safety does not. Father Eduardo is not terrifying because he becomes an aswang. He is terrifying because he remains a priest. Most horror stories would resolve this contradiction quickly. Faith collapses, belief breaks, the character either renounces God or is punished for clinging to him. Kopita does neither. Father Eduardo does not lose his devotion. He accepts his calling. Even after his transformation, he continues to pray. He continues to frame his suffering through religious language. His faith does not disappear. It persists, stubborn and intact, alongside his hunger. This is the core contradiction of the episode. Faith in Kopita is not a shield. It is not a cure. It is not even an answer. It is simply something that remains. Father Eduardo understands what he has become. He resists it, he fights the urge, and yet resistance does not save him. Prayer does not undo the change. Devotion does not reverse the body's demands. The episode quietly suggests something uncomfortable, that belief may give meaning to suffering, but it does not guarantee escape from it. This is where Kopita departs from moralistic horror. There is no implication that Father Eduardo was weak in faith, no hint that this is divine punishment. The transformation feels arbitrary, almost procedural. He went somewhere remote, he encountered something inhuman, and now he must live with it. When Father Eduardo ultimately returns to the barrio, the choice does not feel like surrender, it feels like coherence. If he cannot be healed, if he cannot be cleansed, then the only remaining form of agency is acceptance. Not forgiveness, not redemption, just alignment with what he has become. In that sense, the ending is not tragic in the traditional way. It is disturbingly calm. Father Eduardo does not scream, he does not beg for death, he walks back into the community that made sense of his condition, even if that sense is monstrous. The horror here is not that faith failed him, the horror is that faith endured, even when it no longer mattered. And Kopita leaves us with that unresolved tension. A priest who believes, a monster who prays, a calling that survives even when the self cannot. What makes Kopita unsettling is not just what happens on screen, it's what the episode refuses to explain, resolve, or reassure. By the time it ends, nothing is fixed. Father Eduardo is not saved. There is no moral reckoning. The episode closes on absence, on a letter written by someone far removed from the original events. The story survives only as secondhand memory. That structure mirrors the way audiences encounter Kopita today. Fragments, clips, recollections passed from one viewer to another. In a country where television history is poorly achieved, Kopita becomes more than an episode. It becomes a rumor, a story about a story. Its disappearance from official reruns and platforms doesn't just add mystique, it completes the text. The episode itself is about something that cannot be returned to normal. And culturally, Kopita exists in the same state. You never quite watch it cleanly. You watch it through degraded uploads, low-resolution copies, missing scenes, and uncertain provenance. And that matters because Kopita is built on uncertainty, on the idea that once something crosses into your life, it cannot be fully named or removed. Even the pacing contributes to this sense of unease. Long pauses, minimal exposition, scenes that end too early or too late. The episode feels unfinished, not because it is sloppy, but because it refuses narrative closure. This is why Kopita doesn't age like conventional horror. It doesn't rely on spectacle or shocks that weaken over time. Its power grows as context erodes, as memories blur, as access becomes limited. The less complete the episode becomes, the more it aligns with its own themes. Like Father Eduardo, Kopita exists in a liminal state. Not fully present, not fully gone, still circulating but never at peace. This is what turns it into cursed media. Not because something supernatural happened during production, but because the episode resists containment. It survives in whispers, uploads that vanish, and arguments over whether it was ever that scary to begin with. And maybe that's the most unsettling part. Kopita doesn't haunt us because it's lost. It haunts us because it was never meant to be found neatly again. Kopita is not remembered because it terrified an entire nation. It's remembered because it slipped through our hands. On the surface, the episode is simple. A priest goes somewhere remote. He encounters something inhuman. He comes back changed. This is a story we have heard many times before, in various cultures and eras. But Kopita complicates that story by refusing redemption. Father Eduardo does not overcome what happened to him. Fate does not cure him. The family cannot save him. The episode ends with a man choosing to return to the place that destroyed him, not because he wants to, but because he no longer belongs anywhere else. That choice is never explained, and that silence is the point. In many Filipino horror stories, the monster is something external, a creature, a curse, an intruder. In Kopita, the horror is internal.